My email list is the element in my marketing strategy that drives the most revenue. And in this episode, I want to break down why that is and my top tips if you want to do the same. This is episode number 314 of Starting the Conversation. I'm your host, Alice Benham, and I am a huge advocate for email marketing. I get that it's not a super sexy platform. It doesn't give us those kind of shiny metrics like building a big community on social media or creating viral content or even having a podcast like this would do, but it is a really underrated platform. And for years, I have been banging the drum of email marketing because, as I've already mentioned, it can be so effective when it comes to driving conversion and ultimately revenue in our businesses. Before we dive into the tips, I think it's worth beginning with some theory and context on why email marketing can be so effective when it comes to driving revenue. One of my favorite concepts within marketing strategy is the buyer's journey. And if you haven't heard this talked about by me or perhaps another marketer, it's about tracking the journey that people go through from being strangers to our business to paying clients or customers. The better we understand the buyer's journey, the more we can make sure that our marketing efforts are aligned with it. Because the beauty of the buyer's journey is that it simplifies what we need to be doing in our marketing in order to bring new people in, nurture them towards a sale, and then ultimately invite people to take action and buy, book, inquire, whatever that converting next step is in your business. To fast track some of the theory and just explain what the buyer's journey means for our marketing, there are three main stages that we need to make sure that our marketing efforts are built around. And those three stages are visibility, nurture, and conversion. When we're looking at a marketing strategy, when I'm doing this with a client, when I'm doing this for my own businesses even, we want to be thinking about these three steps of the journey and question, what are we doing for each element? What are we doing to drive visibility, to bring new people into the business? What are we doing to nurture community, to bring people closer to us, to make sure they know who we are, what we do, why they might want to buy from us? And finally, what are we doing to drive conversion, to invite people to buy and encourage them to take that next step? On a basic level, if you map out your marketing strategy that way, you are going to have such instant clarity on where there might be gaps and, more helpfully, what all of your platforms actually exist to do. Because I don't want you just using a platform for the sake of it. I want you to use a platform with intention where you know what you're wanting it to bring to your business. Now, when we think about email marketing, it is incredible, and that is really not me exaggerating, it is genuinely incredible at the second two stages in that buyer's journey. Email marketing is a fantastic tool for nurturing community and then finally for driving conversion. So often when I talk to people about this concept of the buyer's journey and what platforms you're currently using and why, people have gaps in these secondary areas. You know, if you think about social media, whilst it can facilitate the whole buyer's journey, what it's best at is driving visibility, helping new people find us, and then building community. It's that next step where we're really starting to invite people to buy that can be quite hard to do there. And for so many businesses, the tool that is really going to help them unlock conversion and quite easeful conversion, I think is the key thing here. We're not just making money, but we're making money in a way that is actually feeling quite easeful, is email marketing. I do not believe there is a one-size-fits-all approach, but if I had to simplify it, I would say that social media and email marketing is a little bit of a power couple when it comes to marketing strategy. Because if you can have social media as the first step and then email marketing as the second step, you really then allow email to come into its own in terms of that nurture and that conversion. Now let's zoom in then specifically on email marketing. And like I said, today I want to talk about why email marketing is so effective for driving revenue and how more specifically and tangibly you can actually make sure that you are increasing your conversion from the emails that you are sending and the way that you're doing your email marketing. Now, I've already said that word ease, right? Email marketing can be so effective, not just in driving sales, but driving sales in a way that feels really easeful. You can sell via social media. You can sell via a podcast. You can sell via other platforms and channels. I'm not saying it's not effective, but I would say the channel that I think is most easeful in selling, the one that makes it easiest, I never want to say easy because I don't think there's many things in business that are quite easy, but things can be easeful, is email. And I think there's 3 key reasons for that. The first one being that email marketing allows you to be really targeted. Let's use social media as the example here. In fact, let's use any platform. I could use this podcast as an example as well. You will have a kind of big crowd in front of you, a metaphorical crowd, i.e. your followers. Or if it's a podcast, it's your listeners, your subscribers, right? We have this kind of big group. And whilst that's great, our only ever option is to broadcast to that one large group. Now, I know there might be people there going, but Instagram gives you a few ways to you can make a close friends list. Okay, aside from the close friends list on Instagram, which is not scalable for businesses, there is no way in other marketing channels to be targeted. Email is the exception to that, because in email marketing, depending on the way that you set your email list up, you can be targeted. You can speak not just to the big mass of an audience that you have, but to smaller pockets within that audience. And in doing so, you can speak to people in a much more specific way and make sure that you are tailoring what you're saying to who. One of my favorite things about email is that I don't annoy people as much because I'm not showing people things that I don't think are right for them because I'm able to be targeted. I'm going to talk more in this episode about how I specifically do that. The second reason I think email is such an effective sales tool and allows sales to feel quite easy, I think is for us as the business owner, it feels very private. I do not believe that we should feel icky about selling, but I'll be the first to put my hand up and say that I do sometimes feel uncomfortable selling. It feels quite exposing. It can feel quite scary. It's not very comfortable. And I don't believe that is a reason not to sell, but I do believe that email marketing gets rid of a lot of those feelings because it feels very private. You're not broadcasting this sales pitch on a public platform where we worry that, what if it gets no likes and comments and everyone sees that? I say that knowing that that doesn't matter, and we do need to learn how to live with those things as business owners, but in email that just doesn't exist, right? It feels very private, and because of that, I think we can sell in a way that is potentially more confident without feeling like there's anything icky there. And the third and final reason I think that email marketing is so great is because it meets people in a very direct way. If you think about it, people's inbox is a very safe space. I don't know about you, but 90% of what happens in my inbox is really personal communications, talking with my clients, my team, my network. And so someone inviting you into their inbox is actually them giving you a real privilege, a real ability to speak to them very directly. Social media or podcasts or YouTube, we're kind of put alongside all of these other content creators and alongside all these other messages. But actually in an inbox, there's not going to be as much of that noise. And you have an opportunity to really meet people in a very personal, very direct feeling way. So those 3 reasons are why I think email has the potential to be so effective at selling. But the key thing to note here is it's only an effective sales tool if we harness that effectiveness with the right action, with the right strategies. So what I want to share now is 4 really practical tips and kind of strategies that I've used, that I use with my clients as well, that I think contributes to having an email list that generates revenue. Because you can have an email list, it can generate that nurture piece, as I already talked about, but it is a separate thing, making sure that we have that conversion element in there as well. So let's start with the first one, which is actually on the lines of nurturing, which is that in order to convert via email, there has to be a focus of nurturing both before you convert and whilst you're converting as well. I sometimes use the analogy here of thinking about your audience a bit like fish in a pond. That might not be the kindest way to think about them, but stick with me here. If you imagine everyone on your email list is a fish in your pond, you wouldn't necessarily just want to chuck your net in and be like, anyone want to jump in the net and go upgrade to the other pond, buy my thing, inquire, book, take action. If those fish are new to the pond, they probably don't feel very comfortable. They don't know you. They don't trust you. They don't know why they're there. They don't know the benefits of jumping in the net. There's a bit of nurturing for us to do, is what I'm trying to say here. So you want to think about your email marketing in 2 categories. You have emails that nurture, and then you have emails that convert. Your nurture emails are like putting fish food into the pond, right? It's drawing the fish in closer. It's building their trust with you. It's giving them a taster of who you are, what you do, how you do things, so that then in the second category, when you convert and you put the net in, you are seeing much more conversion a higher rate of people taking that next step because of the nurturing you've already done. So if you are brand new to email marketing, or maybe you're starting back up, don't jump straight in with the conversion stuff. Okay, have that first focus on nurturing. I'm not going to give you some set frame of time. If you nurture for 3 months, then you can start converting, because you can start doing both of them from the beginning. But you've got to set expectation for yourself. The email can be a bit of a slow burn in that it takes time to nurture people. Sending emails that are genuinely valuable, sending emails that share more about who you are, what you do, how you do what you do. Making sure that people are building that relationship with you and your business before you convert is going to set you up for much easier, higher rates of conversion as well. If you want me to do a whole separate episode on how to send emails that people actually want to open, and sending those emails that have that nurturing element to them, let me know, because I can definitely do that. But that is the first tip I want to share with you, is that really the work around conversion is everything you do before you send that sales email, everything you do before you ask people to buy, because it's the content that you'll have shared previously that'll have laid the foundation for people to be ready and interested to take action. Moving on then, let's get into some more practical conversion related tips. Once you've got that nurture focus, once you know there's people on that email list that are engaged with you, listening, interested, relevant, that's very key. Let's think about what we can do specifically here. So the second tip I want to give you, and this is genuinely my biggest tip across the board for selling with more ease and effectiveness via email, is to segment your email list by interest and behavior. So let me break down all these different words that I'm flying around here. Okay, your email list is this big list that you have, right? Likely you might call it your newsletter list or whatever. You've maybe got hundreds or even thousands of people signed up there. That's great. But as I've already talked about, the power of email is the ability to be targeted, to not just broadcast messages to everyone, but to get right to the people that might be most interested and relevant. The benefit of that is obviously then you're meeting those people exactly where they're at, and the people that it's not for don't get bombarded with irrelevant sales messages or communications. In order though to do that, you have to segment your list. And segmenting your list is a lot like the segments of an orange, where if your whole list is the whole orange, the segments is the individual categories and groups that sit within that. Now, this is kind of an endless can of worms in a good way, right? You can segment in so many different ways and you can get really detailed with it. But there's two main areas that I think about segmenting within. The first is thinking about segmenting by people's interests. If you in your business sell lots of different things, you will find value in understanding who in your email list is interested in different things. So let me give you some really tangible examples of how I do this. I sell lots of different things in my business. I talk about business strategy, but that can involve things like finances, organization, goal setting, business models, marketing. So what I have is these individual segments listed: interested in finances, interested in marketing, interested in goal setting, which people are added to whenever they engage in my email content that is relevant to that topic. So if you open one of my emails and you click on a link to sign up for a workshop about finances, I'm going to add you, well, I'm not going to do it manually, it will happen automatically. You'll be added to a segment that says this person is probably interested in finances. So multiple people will be in multiple of these interest segments, and not all of my list will be in one, because it's only dependent on people opening my emails and taking action, i.e. clicking things. But you can see what that helps me to do is to understand, right, I've got 5,000 people here, but here's the 400 that care about goal setting the most. Or here's the 600 that I know care about marketing. So if I want to sell something to do with marketing, or if the On It doors are about to open soon and I want to sell the one that's to do with goal setting, I can just send an email directly to those few people. As I said, the benefit then being I'm sending something that I know is likely going to be relevant to them, and I'm not spamming the people that it's not for. So that's the first way you can segment your list, is by interest. If you're a business that also has multiple demographics, maybe you want to segment them by location or segment them by what type of customer they are for you. And that helps you to, again, speak more specifically. The other way that you can segment your list is by behavior. So I have segments of the people that are most engaged in my email list. If I'm selling something, particularly if I'm in a launch period, I will have a segment that is almost the most interested people in the waitlist. So I'll have a waitlist, maybe there's 100 people on it, but I'll also have a smaller list, which is everyone in that waitlist that is clicking in the emails. So you can see what that tells me is not just the bigger group, not just who's interested in this thing, but out of those who's interested, who's really interested. And that means that I can then send more sales emails and perhaps more direct selling to the ones that are really interested. As I said, this is a topic that I could talk about for a long time because it's got so much possibility in it. But this is my second tip and is honestly one that I would recommend anyone who does email marketing really leans into. Because the second you turn your email list from one big crowd of people into these individual segments is the second that you really start to unlock that direct, easeful selling that speaks to the right people and doesn't even say a word to the people that it's not for. If you are wondering what email provider I use that enables me to do all of that, it's Flowdesk. There are more complex solutions out there, but I've tried a lot of them and I still come back to Flowdesk. It is a fantastic tool. I will leave my link in the show notes. I might even have an affiliate link I could share that would get you some money off. So I'll leave Flowdesk linked in the show notes. This is not an ad. It is a fantastic tool that allows you to do all of that segmenting, behavior-based, interest-based segmenting, and really access the conversion that comes as a result. The third tip I want to share with you actually leads on from that, which is whenever you are selling something, I believe that it is in your best interest to let them opt out of that sales period. So let me give you an example of this. Every 3 months, the doors open to my group program On It. It is the most widely used, accessible, impactful thing that I do in my business. It's amazing. If you don't know what it is, I'll leave the link in the show notes to find out more and join the waitlist for when the doors open midway through this year. But On It is something that I talk about, like I said, every 3 months. So I send quite a few emails to my list when the doors are open saying, hey, here's On It, here's what it's about, here's why it's great, here's why you should join. The worst thing that could happen is that during that sales period, someone opens that email and On It's not for them. And they decide that because On It's not for them and they're getting this email that's irrelevant to them, they're just going to unsubscribe from my whole email list. That is my worst nightmare because someone leaving my whole list just because they didn't want one specific thing then means that, all of the work I might have put in to get that person in my community and build a relationship with them is done. I then have to work to bring all of that back just because I sent them an email and didn't give them a way to just opt out of that. So when you see a sales email from me, if you scroll right to the bottom, there will always be a link that says, I don't want to hear about this. And when you click that link, what's going to happen is you are just added to a segment that I have a lot of segments if you can't tell, that would just say, doesn't want to hear about On It, or doesn't want to hear about the strategy sale, or doesn't want to hear about my one-to-one. Those segments are arguably the most valuable ones that I have because the quickest way to get someone off your list is to send them things that aren't for them. And when people want to leave a certain topic, the worst thing you can do is not give them an option to do that because instead they'll just leave your email list as a whole. So yes, we should have people opt in to all of these segments as I just talked about, but arguably more valuable for that is going to be people opting out. Whenever you are launching, whenever you're selling something, give people a way to leave that sales period because that way you're not going to annoy them. They're going to keep happy. And then you'll check back in with them when you start sending emails that aren't about that topic. It's a very simple thing to set up. It just means that whenever I then send emails about On It, I just make sure that I say, okay, send it to this list, but don't send it to anyone who's also on this list because this list is my doesn't want to know about On It list. So that is my third tip for you. Always let people opt out. Let people leave the sales period and then they'll jump back in when you're out of that sales period again. If you take anything from this episode, do that in your emails. Let me finish then with my fourth and final tip. I could talk a lot more about email marketing conversion, but I want to keep this nice and actionable for you, hopefully, which is to really focus in, particularly with any emails you're sending that are leading to a conversion. Maybe it's in your pre-launch period, maybe it's when you're actually selling, is to make sure that your subject line and your teaser text is really intentionally chosen. You might already know this, but your subject line and your teaser text is the only thing that people can use to decide if they want to open your email or not. It's kind of like the first few seconds of a video on social media, right? It says everything. And what happens most of the time for people is they put all of this work into writing an email. They write something really valuable, they make it sound great, they put loads of great visuals in it, buttons, whatever. And then they get to sending it and they're kind of just ready to get it sent. And they're like, oh, I need a subject line and a teaser text. So I'll just put something in. And we've fallen at the final hurdle because it's much like the, front cover on a book or the title of an article. It's the only thing people see that is going to help them decide, yes, do I want to open this, or no, am I just going to delete this email, mark it as spam, or just ignore it completely? So be really intentional with those. You'll work out what kind of strategy you like. I don't love going too clickbaity with it. I think that can get a bit tiring, a bit icky, but you want to be compelling. The rule of thumb I would say would be that there should be some really key words within the first couple of words of both your subject line and your teaser text. Try not to use too many filler words. If there is something free in the email, if the email is an announcement, make that clear. Be clear in what that email is, but also have that compelling element to it as well. If you can include a statistic or a fact, or maybe even a question as your subject line, that can really help people be drawn in as well. This is something that I would recommend all of us do testing around. If you're not sure what kind of subject lines work for you, try different things. You'll quickly start to see your open rate change depending on what kind of subject line you're using. And based on that, you're going to learn what helps you get that open rate. Obviously, the subject line only gets them to open. The email itself then needs to be fantastic at converting as well. But a little bonus tip for you, any emails that are focused on conversion, keep it clear and keep the next steps really obvious. Big buttons, bold text where you're promoting something. Cut the fluff, make sure that you are really, really clear. Assume that people only have a couple of seconds to scan read your email, and make sure that you are getting to the point and offering them a next step within that first glance that people might give something. The rules to selling via email, aside from all of these little kind of tips and tricks I've shared, I don't think are that different to selling anywhere else. Focus on the value of what it is that you're selling. Don't just sell the format. Make sure they know why it's for them and what the benefits are going to be, and keep it clear. If there's an offer, if there's a next step, if there's an urgency, be really clear and repetitive with that. I really hope you've enjoyed some of these tips and tricks that I've shared in this episode. Some of these I haven't ever shared before. So I would love to hear if there's anything more in terms of email marketing that you would want to hear from me. As I mentioned already, I've done a lot of episodes on this. I'll link a few of them in the show notes, but I could definitely make some more episodes around those nurture emails, or perhaps even more specifically, like what my email strategy looks like in a launch. That might be something I could dive into. Let me know, because as you'll have probably got from this episode, I love talking about email marketing. I think it's so fantastic as a tool, but I totally get why we can feel a bit overwhelmed by it if we're not using it to its greatest strengths. So think about your next steps from this episode. If your next step is like, oh my gosh, I need to think more about email marketing and I want help with this, let me just remind you that the strategy sale, which is where I do 27% off all my products for the month of April to celebrate mine and the business's birthday, is ending soon. And there is an email marketing mini course in there, which has helped, I think at this point, over 500 businesses with their email marketing. It is really broken down. It's step by step. It's very actionable. And it's not just talking about what I've discussed today. It's every piece of the puzzle. So building your list, growing your list, getting people to join, sending those nurture emails, what it actually looks like to send emails that convert, and a kind of launch strategy for that. And it's very affordable even before you get 27% off. So I will leave the link to that mini course in the show notes if you want to check it out. It is a really great investment if you're just feeling a bit stuck with email and you want some expert help. But that is it for another episode. Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're tuning into this. I will be back in your ears next Tuesday with hopefully some more actionable expertise. So until then, I'm cheering you on.